On July 2nd, 2019, I uploaded my video Top 5 Upcoming Cartoons, where on the list I mentioned The Owl House, at the time a show that most of the people in the cartoon community didn't know very much about except for the general synopsis and the creator. And I said I was very excited for it. It was one of my most anticipated shows, and in my mind, I was hoping that one day I would review it. Well, almost 2 years later, and here we are. My review of The Owl House Season 1. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer, this is 100% my opinion. I'm not claiming that any of these are facts, right? If there's anything you disagree with, I would love to discuss it with you guys in the comments, but I advise to please watch the entire video first before you comment down anything. So, without further ado, hit it. Hello everybody, my name is Chill, and welcome to my first, impressions of The Owl House. I finished watching the show a few months ago, and I've been sitting on these thoughts and opinions for a while because I wanted to make sure I really soaked in them, I thought them through, I rewatched them watched some YouTube videos about it, and you know what? I think I'm ready to give my opinion on YouTube. So first, what is The Owl House? So basically, it's a new Disney Channel cartoon, created by Dana Terrence of Gravity Falls and the Ducktales reboot fame. For her previous work, I have watched Gravity Falls, and it's one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I haven't watched Ducktales, but the things I have heard have been very positive. So, even when I first heard of it, I was expecting it to be pretty darn good, and I have to say, it delivers extremely well. So, the premise of The Owl House is about this little girl named Luce, right? She's sort of an outcast, sort of weird in her normal human world. People don't really like her. She doesn't have many friends. I don't think she has any friends. Her mom thinks she's odd. And, her mom's about to send her to, I want to say re-education, but that sounds very militaristic. Just like a summer camp to make kids normal, and Luce doesn't really like that. She's a little bit of an oddball, a little bit of an outcast to the normal society, but suddenly one of her fantasy books gets stolen by an owl, and bada bing bada boom, she ends up isekai'd into a dark fantasy world. This is where Luce meets her soon-to-be mentor Ida and Ida's little friend King, and where Luce trains to be the next great witch. That's sort of the general outline. There's a lot more details in the plot, but if for someone who just wants to hear the premise, that's a pretty basic premise. When I first heard of it, it sounded pretty interesting. I was like, oh, an isekai, and especially after watching Amphibia, I was like, another show about a character who gets transported to another world. But after watching both, they're very different. They're not even similar. Aside from the premises, they're very different shows. I sort of separate the first season into two halves. Season 1, part 1 is sort of a lot more episodic. You can kind of watch the episodes out of order and it doesn't really matter aside from some little plot points. A lot of the episodes weren't really my favorite. I didn't really like them. It was a lot more focused on Luce getting introduced to the very bare bones concept of the world she was transported in, the Boiling Isles, sort of getting to know the main cast that we're going to be interacting with the entire story, the school system that Luce will end up going to, some sort of the general premises that you can expect, the character interactions and dynamics that you can expect. The first part of the first season is mostly setup. It's not bad, but I'm not gonna say I'm not a big fan of setup, but setup gets boring for me a lot. So I have a very high standard for really good setup, because a lot of my favorite cartoons have great setup. So when a show kind of does setup that's kind of just meh, I'm not very interested. So I did watch I think I watched Owl House when it was airing weekly at first, and then in the middle of the season, I kind of just dropped it. I was not interested. It did not catch my attention. I liked what I saw, but I just did not see a purpose in, watching it anymore. That is until a few months back, my friend Ostrich Vox from the Roundtable made a video on the possibilities for the Owl House Season 2. I watched it thinking maybe this would get me interested in Season 1, because there's a lot of shows that I wasn't really interested until I saw, a later part or a second season, stuff like My Hero Academia, heck, even Steven Universe. And it did. Not really what he's discussing was going to be in Season 2, but some of the clips he used from Season 1, and I was like, oh, I gotta get to these episodes, and I gotta get the build-up. So, I don't want to use the word struggled, but I kind of chugged through the first half of Season 1, and then I got to what I believe is the meat and bones of the Owl House, Season 1, Part 2. Season 1, Part 2 is a lot more focused on main plots. It feels like it sort of follows an arc. While Season 1, Part 1 is sort of just focused on Luce and her finding out different stuff about the Boiling Isles. Season 1, Part 2 seems a lot more character-driven. We focus a lot more on Willow and Amity and Ida and Lilith and the antagonist of the series. Well, I'm going to talk about him later in case you don't want any spoilers. And I really preferred that over the Season 1, Part 1 sort of, oh, here's a wacky concept that's in this dark fantasy world, let's explore it. I'm a lot more of a character person, and the second part of Season 1 really does it really well. I think there wasn't there was the carnival episode of Season 1 that I wasn't really a fan of, but in the latter half of the season, I was in love with every episode. They were all fantastic, and I really liked them, especially the finale. I don't want to get into too much detail in case someone watching this wants to experience it pretty blind, but I'm just saying, oh boy, that fight between Ida and Lilith, it is mind-blowing. It is like anime quality, and I don't normally compare Western cartoons to anime because I think it's kind of silly, but geez Louise, it is hype as hell. So, but yeah, and I did say that the second part of Season 1 focuses a lot more on characters, and this show does its characters really well. Let's begin with the protagonist, Luce. Luce is a really good protagonist, but you definitely have to grow on me. I do have to be honest. I know her story isn't finished, but from what I got from Season 1, in the first episode, I wasn't really a big fan of Luce. They really tried to make her seem like an oddball, and normally I can relate to that, but I think they exaggerated it to a point where I was a little annoyed, and I was like, I can get some of the complaints, like, throwing spiders into a public school that's putting other people in danger, possibly, and a lot of the things she does is just, I can see it as aggravating, but maybe that's a problem with me. Who knows? And maybe, I know the exaggeration had purpose, but I just wasn't a big fan of it. But throughout the season, we really see her development as a character, and that's really unique for a show with only one season. We kind of see, when I first saw the season, I was like, oh, she's going to be weird, and then she's transported to a fantasy world that has stricter rules, so she's going to teach them to be more free, but it goes kind of both ways, where not only does she teach some people to be more free and open with themselves, she also gets taught to sort of, be kind, be nice, be aware of other people and not just yourself, and not use the concept of you being different as an excuse for bad behavior. And I do like that message because there are a lot of people in the real world that don't really get that, and that kind of causes a lot of issues and stuff like that. And plus, her personality, aside from character development, is just really cute and adorable. She's a very hopeful person who cracks a lot of jokes, and I like just happy protagonists. Yeah, I like deep ones like BoJack, but sometimes I just want a happy Luffy. You know what I'm saying? And Luce really got that for me. She's definitely a really good protagonist for this show, especially sort of bringing the lightheartedness to the Boiling Isles, which is a good world and has those funny moments. I'll get to that later, but she sort of brings the happy smiles to this dark fantasy world. The sort of, I'm gonna call it second main character of the Owl House is Ida, Luce's mentor. Ida is a great mentor and is probably one of, if not my favorite mentor in animation, just because of how much development she also goes through. Other mentors often sit aside, like they don't get as much focus as the main character, and normally that works pretty well. It's not a complaint. Someone like Tenzin Takora, it's not really his story. He does get development, but not as much as Korra. Here it feels like Ida is learning just as many lessons as Luce from Luce, and Luce is learning lessons from Ida. You know, like I feel like they might do this, but maybe Ida's like a parallel and a contrast to Luce at the same time, which I would love that, because I love when they do parallels and contrasts in stories, and having the mentor be that is very interesting. But also just as a character, she's just really funny. I know my good friend Cash loves Ida, and I understand why. She is very funny. She has me laughing a lot. And even her backstory, her motives, her personality, her ideology, they're very extreme, but they're enjoyable. You know, you're never at the point where you're annoyed with Ida. And when you are, it's not like you're like mad at the writers for writing her like that. You're mad at the character, which is a good thing. At least I think so. So I think they did Ida really good as a great mentor for Luce. Other side characters are pretty interesting, from Willow to Gus to Amity. These are all very interesting characters and are on par with Luce and Ida. Willow has her moments, Gus has his moments, and Amity, oh baby. I have a lot of positive thoughts about Amity, especially her role in LGBT representation and the fact that it's not subtle, and I like that. But also that I feel like she's gonna play a bigger role in future seasons. I've sort of, in my mind, compared her to the anime rivals, and I feel like the Killua to Luce's Gon. And I feel like in future seasons they're really gonna play on that, especially seeing Owl House. I think it's concept art or future art. I don't know, but I really do hope they play with the sort of dynamic between Luce and Amity, and not only romantically. I would love to see more of that, but sort of just magically, like in terms of magic, which I will discuss later. It's great to have a likable cast, especially of side characters, main characters, mentors, and stuff. But I think what's even more important than likable side characters is a great antagonist, and oh boy, the central antagonist of the Owl House has to be the most interesting antagonist I've seen in animation in a long time. So, spoilers if you haven't seen the final 2 episodes of the Owl House, you can skip to this part. But yeah, if you have seen it or don't care about spoilers, the Emperor is amazing. I love his design. I love the lore they're giving him, and I'm very interested to see where they're taking him. Now, we don't know enough about him for me to really talk about his, character, as like a character and not just like an idea. But I love the idea of him. Sort of like the kind of the originator of what we see as the Boiling Isles now, the ruler, but sort of like a dark ruler with a sort of dark magic. I'm loving it, and it's really gonna bring some ideas of sort of, taking down a large oppressive force, which I love those in stories, and also him having a mysterious origin. Now, I'm thinking this in my head, and this might be really obvious, but I'm thinking he's some sort of human, right? And then him being human and using a different type of magic than everyone else, that brings a contrast to Luce, and I love those. And I feel like, depending on how they take the Emperor, if they really spend a lot of time with him, which I hope they do, he can be one of the greatest antagonists in Western animation history. And I cannot wait to see more of him. I already love his design, his voice, and the sort of aura he gives. He sort of gives like a deep crazy aura, and I love it. I'm infatuated with the idea of the Emperor, and I can't wait to see what they do with him in future seasons, especially with that portal at the end of the last episode. Can't wait to see what they're doing. Maybe it's a portal to the human world or something. I'm thinking it's that, but I can't wait. I can't wait to see what they do with him. Now, I feel like everyone has noticed this, but in every single, and I can't fact check that with exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure every single episode of the Owl House has one moment where it's like Sakuga. I think that's what Vox Kevin called it. It's just beautiful animation, and I love it. It's like eye candy, bro. Especially in the final 2 episodes. Oh my god, it's like mind-blowing. And if they continue to do this throughout the entire series, Jesus Christ, the Owl House will be legendary for revolutionizing action scenes in Western animation, especially modern Western animation. With stuff like this, oh my god. And it's a studio that's not like the Korra studio or the Ride studio. It's a different studio, and I like to see that. I like to see more studios be called in for Western action shows except for like the same 2 or 3. I want to see more of them expand into more genres, except for these are the comedy animators and these are the action ones, you know? Well, to be fair, a lot of the comedy ones are in-house, but you know what I mean, you know? I like to see revolutionary animation techniques from different cultures in new cultures and stuff like that. I love when stuff, I love it. So yeah, the animation in the Owl House is just beautiful and mind-blowing every time. It gets me hype, especially when they use it in fights. Oh my god. And the Grom scene, dude. That was I've seen it on Twitter, but it was still beautiful to see like on my computer in full screen. It was just absolutely beautiful. So in conclusion, The Owl House is a really good show that I feel like most animation fans should give a chance. You know, if you liked Gravity Falls, if you watched DuckTales and like that, I guarantee you will like The Owl House. The beautiful animation, the well-written characters, the well-written just general show, the interesting story, the unique direction it's taking, and the sort of, you know, more horror-focused story it's going with compared to like something like Amphibia. It's definitely going to be stand out in like the next few years, and and the kids who are watching it now, damn, they are lucky, because The Owl House is really darn good. You know, personally, I cannot wait for season 2. I really hope it gets announced soon and it comes soon, because I just want to see where this story goes. So, guys, what are your thoughts on The Owl House season 1? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Comment if you did or did not, and why, down below. And comment some suggestions for other shows you want me to check out. I might just actually watch it. While you're down there, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and that little bell icon so you get notified when I make a new video. Anyway, hope all of you enjoyed and have a damn good one. Peace.